Speak Up with Vernisa and Jen. It's time to speak up.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ms. Vernisa.
Hey, y'all. This is Jen.
This is our podcast, Speak Up. What's up, Jen?
Hey, girl.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Together, we made it to episode 11 of our newest segment, SpeakUpJV Now.
I can't believe we're already here. Like, that goes so fast.
Yes, time just be flying. For those of you that don't know, me and Jen are best friends. We create this podcast to use our voices to motivate people to overcome life's challenges through self-love and respect.
That's right, y'all. Even if it's 111 episodes or 11 episodes, we will always be talking about self-love and respect as they're two core values we hold near and dear to our hearts.
Yes, most definitely. But before we get started, a quick shout out to our amazing sponsors. Shout out to My Bar, located at 720 East Manchester in Inglewood, California. Get your nails, your lashes, your hair done. Ask for mine. Tell them that SpeakUpJV sent you. The Instagram is at nyy.bar.
And shout out to Be Actual Natural. Why settle for less? All their products are created with you in mind for a goal to let your self-love show through your self-care. Their chemical-free hair and skincare products are handmade, plant-based, and free of fillers or preservatives. Treat yourself while you're taking care of yourself. Start your journey at www.beactualnatural.com or check them out on Instagram at beactualnatural.
Yes, most definitely. So, this is going to be a great episode for tonight. I think it's very relevant with the month. What is our title?
Our title for the episode is called Let That S Go.
Let that ass go. I know you're like thinking, well, let that shit go. No, we're talking about stress tonight. So, in honor of Stress Awareness Month, which is April, we're like, you know what? It goes right with our show. Let's talk about it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, as we get older, right, or any type of person, adult especially, we experience stress, and maybe stress of all kinds, stress at an unexpected time in our lives, all types of stress. So we thought it would be important to talk about this, like you were mentioning, obviously in awareness, but also as like a quarter year checkup type of thing, right? We just started spring, so we thought it would be a good time to kind of refresh our bodies and start letting go of that stress that maybe the first quarter of the year may have brought us.
And I'm glad you brought up spring, because I feel like, yeah, like, you know how they say it is like a new year too. There probably is a lot of stress we're still holding on to from last year or last spring. So it's like, what are you really holding on to? I think it's good to check in with have those mental check-ins about what baggage are we still carrying and what stress needs to be let go of.
Mm-hmm.
That was great. So our ask up question of the day is, what is your favorite way to cope with stress? Oh, I have a bunch, I think for me personally, my favorite way to cope with it is talking about it. I think sometimes if I hold things in personally, it actually stresses me out more. But when I talk things through, either if it's with myself, I talk to myself, or maybe with others and stuff, it actually helps me process like what I'm really feeling, and then be able to act on the best solution to get through whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to piggyback off of that as well. And I think that's healthy, right? Like, that's why we have people who we can trust and who we love, and we expect them to love us in return as well. But I think it's a really good way in the sense of at least trying to put it into words, right? Like, what is stressing us out? And I've noticed that, at least for me, that helps me even get to the root of what that is, because it may be like, oh, I was stressed out at work, right? But it's like, if I keep talking about it, I dig deeper and I realize, oh, maybe I was stressed out because of this, maybe there's a lot going on in my family right now, or my relationship, or even within myself, right? So those are different things to even dissect, to be able to figure out, okay, if this is stressing me out, what's the next step that I can take? So talking about it has definitely helped that out.
Oh yeah. That's a big one. So I know I know how you are with our Google definition. So what do we have for what is stress?
Well, we had to look this one up because I know we all might be saying, oh, I'm so stressed, blah, blah, and stuff. But it's like, what does that actually mean, right? Like, we could say stubbing our toe on something caused me stress. It can be an actual, like, stressful big event, right? Like maybe something life-changing. So the definition that we both agreed upon is the one that we got from Google, where it says stress is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. And for
Mm.
us both, we said the very demanding part is what stood out, right? Because I think that's the biggest difference in realizing what is actual stress and then what is something that's just inconvenient in the moment.
Hmm. Yeah, that demanding is very important because it's like that's when it's actually taking a toll on you, and I think it crosses that threshold to become that stress. Because we go through little stresses every day, but I think that demanding part is what wakes us up and makes us realize, okay, something's up. What can I do to get past it? And we all have different stress limits. I think too. This is like my personal opinion. I think too a lot of it also comes from like different upbringings that we have. Like if you had to grow up fast at a younger age and stuff, your tolerance may be different from a person who probably had a little easier in certain ways and probably, would, I would say, something smaller would make them worry. That's the way I'll put it.
Agreed, definitely. I mean, we're all chemically built a different way, right? Even on top of that. So, like you were saying, adding the environment that we grew up in, adding our personality traits into that, adding our chemistry into that, that definitely adds to that. And that's why we need to practice more grace too, right? That maybe something that we're like, oh, well, I've been through worse, or girl, I went through that already. Like, don't diminish somebody else's stress just because, like you were saying, it's not something that you would particularly be stressed about, or vice versa. Especially right now, right? There's so much going on. We get overwhelmed with all types of news all day long. So it's very easy to get stressed out because sometimes it does affect some people more on a personal level versus others. So just being more kind to each other and practicing that grace with each other, but more importantly, practicing that towards yourself.
Oh, yes, that was what I said. Practicing that towards yourself, knowing your own personal limit, even too, don't compare your stress limit to someone else's. Like just because you like, let's say someone close to you went through something worse and then something happened to you and you're like, oh my goodness, why am I not? I think too, we stress ourselves out more when we question why certain battles make us feel more defeated than it did with other people. You know what I mean? And like you said, there's reasons we're wired certain ways. And
Mhm.
also too, we have to acknowledge like what is stressing us out. I guess a big one. I've been guilty of this of normalizing certain stresses in my life, like
Mhm.
so much where I'm like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be, and it's like no, like but when you really sit down and figure out what's the root of certain things, it's like okay, there are certain things that I actually can work through or exit out of my life to alleviate certain stress that's coming my way.
Yeah, big time. Like you realize how much control you actually have over the things that may be stressing you out, right? And then even if it's something that can't be fixed right away, it's about like what we can do to cope with that stress. A little bit later, I know we're going to get into like how we actually cope with it or like what our favorite coping mechanisms are. And I think it's really important to do that when you feel like everything in your life is maybe a little chaotic and going out of control. Really look at like your circle of friends, your family, even your partner. Like those are things that are probably in our daily lives, right? So it's something that maybe one day we feel a certain way and then the next day it's like, oh, why do I feel this way towards this person or this situation? And when you really start to think about it and act on it, then you realize, oh, okay, this may be why, and you realize maybe it's not even so much the people around you, it's more you, right? Like you're going through something internally. Sometimes we do go through these mental battles that we don't even share with our most loved ones. So we are the only person that we can't lie to, right? So in that aspect, we need to take that accountability for ourselves and be like, okay, it's more me than it is this person. And sometimes it is just something that this person is doing. So that's where those conversations come in. And we've talked about this extensively, right? About having those uncomfortable conversations and being able to really sit down with each other. And it doesn't even mean that you have to get hostile with each other. It just means that you have to be able to verbalize with each other as best as you can. Like even putting it just all in how you're feeling in this moment because of this reason.
Hmm. Hmm. And I think we always have to ask ourselves: Is this helping or hindering us? The more you do that, I feel like it's easier to know, okay, what's really going on. Because sometimes two people in our group can add on to what's going on. I don't know if you guys ever like open up to someone about something that was stressing you out, and you have people who will like throw salt on it or add more to it or won't be empathetic about what it is. So it's like you always have to ask yourself those questions. And I
Mhm.
want to say this with some, our minds are very powerful. Sometimes our mind will overpower us with the big picture, so it's important to break things into many steps. We love saying this on our show: take it day by day, take it moment by moment, sometimes second by second, sometimes shoot, because I've been guilty of that, looking at this full big old thing and just getting stressed out. You ever started like a college class, they give you the syllabus and you like, hold on, like I'm about to be doing all this, and it's like, literally when you break it course by course, lesson by lesson, it's actually not as crazy as what you see. So that's, I feel like, a good way to view stress as too.
Ooh, you just brought me back to the college receiving the syllabus. Yeah, on the first day.
Like, oh, like, I'm gonna learn this. Like, no.
It's a miracle. Well, not a miracle. Obviously, we worked hard, but it's amazing that we made it to the very end, because that was something else. Applause to all of y'all out there at higher education, because that's a big one. But yeah, it goes back to that saying, right, that things seem impossible until they're done. Like how you're saying, breaking it down minute by minute, even course by course, lecture by lecture, however it needs to be broken down. And the thing that I've been trying to normalize too with stress, or when I get overwhelmed with something, is don't be afraid to break it down even to the most minute of details, because when you do that, if it helps you understand better and it helps you like breathe a little bit better and be more calm, then that's obviously something that's working, right? Like I definitely used to beat myself up when I first started like this job that I'm at. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much information, I'm never going to learn this stuff. And yeah, I've made my mistakes here and there, because obviously it is a lot of information. But even now I break it down moment by moment. Okay, within these next 20 minutes, what am I expected to do? What is my priority? You and I were talking about this the other day. And what's a system that I can have, right? We're big on systems. We're big on productivity over here. So that's definitely something that has helped me work things out. And I've stopped shaming myself for having to do that versus other people. It's like second nature to them. For me, it's like, okay, it's a whole brand new thing, a whole brand new field. So obviously it's something that if I have to understand it better this way, then it's gonna work, right? I'm still being efficient. I'm still getting the work done. And I'm still moving closer to what I'm seeking to achieve. So then that's obviously something that works. So if that's something that you've been struggling with, I definitely recommend it. Break it down as best as you can. This can be applied to work, to even your relationships. It can be applied to maybe certain aspects of parenting too. Like just breaking things down as best as you possibly can, so that you can even see the little pictures, and maybe you can even see the little steps that need to be taken before you get to that big step.
I love that. And I think to acknowledging how easily you do get overwhelmed. I'm a person who gets overwhelmed, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I love that you brought up systems. So that system is going to help you pause and slow down. I think one of my biggest things about stress, I forgot to add it from the beginning, is just pausing. I think, when you dive right into the stress and you're like, oh my goodness, this is what I'm going through, it's easy just to be like, to freak out, to be like that Mr. Krabs meme. You know what I mean? But when you take that pause, our life always goes to SpongeBob anyway. When you take that pause, it's like, okay, I think that's where that system can come in place, because you're like, okay, I know what to do, what to break down. And I think too, let's like, let's debunk this a little bit too. The problem with having to seem stronger than you are. We're in a society, we have to wear this armor in the world every day. It's like life is a nonstop fight sometimes. And I think it's hard because like we will catch ourselves taking on more than we can handle to keep our head above water. And I think to acknowledging how strong you are and how much you can take, and like I said again, your overwhelming limits.
Yeah, that's a really big one. Like, I mean, obviously there's certain balance to have with this, right? And I would say more so take it offline rather than, voicing it out there. Like if you have a loved one that you can share with, or even with yourself, spending time, those are definitely ways that you can be more vulnerable and not feel so much pressure also to be that strong. And then even if you need to take that break from social media or whatever it is, that's also healthy too, right? Like I've always been saying this, right? But I think rest days should be a normal thing. Like whether it's a weekly rest day or a monthly rest day, if you can schedule that into your time, that's something that definitely should be put in. But when we're saying like rest, it means like rest, like a day that you get to really just take care of yourself, whatever that looks like. Maybe partaking in some healthy hobbies, maybe it's just sleeping in a little bit more, different ways to really even take care of yourself physically, and then still be able to take care of yourself mentally. And I think this is a really big one. with because it adds to the having healthy ways to decompress, because we're always talking about like, oh well, I get the weekends off, blah blah, but it's like, what are you really doing with your weekends also, for those of you who do work like a 9 to 5 or whatever days you have off. It's like, what are you doing with those days as well? Like sometimes I overwhelm myself with what I'm going to do over the weekend too, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much that I have to take care of here in the house. I have bills to pay. I have to go wash my car. I have to go do this, which is good. Yes, I love getting things done on the days that I don't always have that time or it's not always convenient to. But I've also started purposely putting in more rest days into my weeks so that I feel very refreshed when it is time to go full hard hustle and focus on other things versus just taking care of myself completely, because it may not always be that way as well. So we need to find more ways to be able to decompress in a healthy manner.
Yeah, and being more mindful of that rest, like you were saying. And speaking of the healthy ways to decompress, like one of my healthy ways is running. I make sure I get my runs in every week. And what I want to say with healthy ways, I think it's important that something has to become a routine, because when it's that routine and it's in your lifestyle, it's not going to feel like, oh, I got to set this time aside for the decompressing.
Right.
Like you should be decompressing all the time, like have it as a routine. Because I learned that, because instead of how you ever just be like, you like overwork yourself and you finally pop, so then you decompress. And it's like being proactive about it before you get to that limit, till you reach your limit. So with me incorporating running in my schedule, it's not so much like, damn, I need to run. It's like I'm already doing it, so I'm decompressing as I go. So now when stress is hitting me, I don't feel so stressed out because I'm already incorporating certain healthy habits.
I love that so much. I hope everybody was listening out there. Hope y'all are taking notes, because that's a really good way to have it. Like, let it out before it builds up. That's definitely big and key. And then asking yourself, like, are you loving yourself with this mechanism? Is it going to help you in the long run? And these go into the healthy habits, right? Like, if this is something, a way that you're decompressing, is it actually healthy for you? Because I know sometimes we may cope with maybe substances, right? And that may not always be the best route, because then it can turn into something more deadly and detrimental in the long run. So it's more of asking yourself in your own particular lifestyle, like, is this actually helping me in the long run? Is this actually self-care? I think we take that word for granted as well, on what it means to self-care, because it's not just like skincare or, decompressing by, I don't know, going out to the club. I don't know how people decompress anymore, but like obviously having that balance, right? I'm not saying don't ever do that. Obviously have your fun. We still deserve to have that fun, but don't let that be your only like escape route. Make sure that you're still fulfilling your duty to yourself, because that never gets off the clock, right? As stressed out as we may be, we always owe it to ourselves to take care of ourselves. So when we're practicing in these healthy mechanisms, then yeah, we're realizing, okay, I'm actually adding onto my life versus taking away from it.
That's true. And we can't put the full responsibility on somebody else to handle all of our stress. I really want to emphasize that as well. Yes, you have friends, you have lovers, things like that, to be there for you through certain things, maybe give you a massage, be there for a conversation, but it's ultimately up to us to always like Jen said, take care of ourselves eternally. So I'm glad you brought that up, best friend. And also too, know when to say no. Let's be real. A lot of our stress comes from saying yes all the time. And let's be real, that a lot of it happens in the work environment. How many times it's just, I'm not saying like tell your boss no to everything and stuff, but your work limit, how much you could take on, or like if you're doing constant favors for people, are you squeezing enough time with yourself to decompress? It's hard to say no. This is the person right here it was hard to say no. But ever since I've been saying no, that glow been glowing, okay? So
Yes, absolutely. And when you start to say no to certain things, you realize how many other things you can say yes to, right? And we've had a whole conversation about this, especially when we had Jess Hart on here. Shout out to her, about the yeses and the nos and having those balances in your life. But no is definitely a really big way that you don't realize how much you're stressing yourself out by participating in something that maybe you initially didn't want to. So that's why like boundaries are super important. I feel like this is something that we talk about literally every single episode. I don't think there has been one that we haven't, but that's how important it is. Like, it applies to pretty much everything in your life, to your self-love, to you the relationships you have with other people. It applies against your workplace as well. It applies to so many different things. And those boundaries, obviously, like there's I want to say like a fluid meter to how extreme those boundaries are, right? Because we never want to have super rigid boundaries, but we don't want to have loose boundaries either. We want to be somewhere in the middle. And then what kind of boundaries we have may switch, right? Depending on what's a priority or who's a priority or what we're taking care of at that time. So obviously it's going to depend on your lifestyle, and you're going to have to figure out those boundaries the best way that you can. But it's definitely something that you need to have if you're trying to get rid of that stress.
Oh, I love that. I want to say too, if you're listening out there, feel free to drop a comment, ask us questions, answer the question, to join the conversation. So, and also too, I want to say this too: normalize asking for help. I'm gonna say that again. Normalize asking for help. We're in a time we try to act like we don't need help, or we're trying to do everything ourselves. You're adding more stress onto yourself, especially when you have genuine people around you. I'm not saying go to just to anybody asking for help, but if you have people who love you, genuinely care about you, want to help you, don't be afraid to ask for help when it comes to certain things, especially if you're like overwhelmed. I just feel like, there's a lot of people that feel like they don't have that. And it's like, they don't try to take it upon themselves. And I think that's when that stress meter runs high. And then shoot, there's so many community resources if you don't have that group of friends. There's people to talk to and things like that. I feel like there's always a resource somewhere with that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of the beautiful parts about social media, right? That we've talked about this too. Like you can find your niche anywhere, whether it's the makeup industry, self-care, podcasting in particular, gaming, whatever it is, you can find something on there. So what I love about that is that there's also a community of people who may have similar values or ways of thinking, perspectives. So it makes it a little bit easier to also confide in somebody who may not be so close, right? I've talked about this before also, where sometimes we may feel judged when we're talking to somebody that we do know or that knows us, versus like talking to maybe a professional or even just somebody online who is a stranger. Although I'm not condoning talk to strangers, but if you do find a community that helps you, then I definitely recommend that, because I've had some pretty decent conversations online with people who we just vibed, because we happen to be into the same things. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely met a few of those. And also I want to say this too with stress. If you fall out today, what you stressing over ain't gonna get done anyway. So, and that rhymes. So listen, that's a bar right there. So it's true. And I always think about that. Like I always think about something I'm working at. And I'm like, if I don't even have the energy to do it, like for example, like I like to write. So I have my moments like my mind is there, it's ready to write. That's when the best writing comes out, right? But if I'm like not all over the place, it's not going to be effective work. So what's the point of stressing when it's like, okay, take that recharge and then go back at it. So that is definitely something to throw in there. So it's time for our tweet up segment. So y'all know I love to be on Twitter. So something that I tweeted this week that goes with tonight's episodes is distractions prolong the stress of not accomplishing the goals that you want to achieve. So yeah, we want to talk about accountability though and the stress. How many things we stressing over, but we're allowing the distractions to take over our energy to even go after the goal in the first place. Sometimes we're our own fault for that. You know what I mean? It's like the same with money. If you're trying to save for something, you need something to get, but you're blowing it or something, that's you adding to the stress when you know that there's something that you have to do. So it's like there's certain parts where we have to, because some things are just life circumstances, but some things we do got to take accountability for, allow ourselves to gain the discipline to grow from it.
Definitely. Ooh, I felt so called out with that. Trying to say consumerism, right? Capitalism.
Speaking tonight.
Exactly, calling ourselves out over here too. But as much as we may laugh, like there's certain things that it causes us a lot of stress, and because we're over here still giving it power, then it's only getting worse. And I think one of the best examples I can give with this would be a bad relationship, right? Or a dead end relationship. Like I know probably 99.9% of us have been in a relationship where we shouldn't have been, or in some sort of situation we shouldn't have been. And we just keep expecting things to turn out a certain way, or people to change or whatever it is, but it's not working, and there comes a point where it's like it's really up to the other person to want to contribute as much as you're contributing in a healthy manner. So when we continue to entertain this type of relationship, then yeah, we lose ourselves, we are stressed out on a mental level, so then that adds up being stressed out maybe on a physical level, emotional, all types, and it starts to affect other parts of your life. So this is why it's really big to take that accountability and say, you know what, yeah, I'm part of the reason why I'm still here, or I am the reason why I'm still here, why I'm still stressed out about this. I do want to point out though that I'm not blaming nobody for any type of thing per se, but it's more so on, I'm purposely still giving this person or this particular situation power. So how much of this can I remove by just removing myself? And it may be hard, obviously. Like, getting rid of stress is not an easy thing, whether it is a physical stress or an emotional one. So it's gonna suck. You know, we always talk about this on our show, that we try to be real with y'all and saying none of this is easy. It sounds pretty on paper. Yeah, the end result is gonna be worth it, but while you're in it, it's gonna hurt. You're probably gonna question it a few times, but then once you're finally out, you're gonna be like, you know what? I should have done this a lot sooner for myself. And when you finally get to that point, you'll see why it is important to kick those stressors out of your life as best as you can.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that's where like self-reflecting comes along, like reevaluating your circle, really sitting down, being real about what you're giving your time to. I had an epiphany a couple months ago where I was like, I'm complaining and this wasn't done, but I'm giving all this time and energy to such and such, to this and that, instead of what it should be. You know what I mean? I feel like there's always cut corners you can cut to really make that. It's like that saying they say we all have the same amount of time in a day. And it's funny because I get annoyed when people say that, but then I'm like, dang, you think of how much time we put into things where it's like that is that extra 30 minutes. And I've been learning the beauty of even if it's like 20 minutes of this, 15 minutes of this, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be like I need 2 whole hours of, as long as you're putting in that time, that can be a stress reliever. That's the word I was trying to use. And,
Yes.
and that goes with, the importance of taking preventative measures before the stress even hits.
Oh yeah, those are big, right? Like, I like to see that as, the quote unquote red flags that sometimes people be talking about, or um, the way you feel after you eat a meal that you shouldn't have had. Those are the preventative measures, right? Well, actually, that would be after you ate the meal. But like, maybe just seeing how things are going to affect you or how people are going to affect you. Those are preventative measures to take. Or you've been in this type of situation before, you've had that type of meal before, and you know what you feel like, so why would you even take it again? Like, those are maybe more silly examples, and obviously it's going to vary person to person, but when we're starting to really stop ourselves from even entertaining a stressor in our life, then that's something less to worry about. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't like to worry about too many things at once, because then I start overwhelming myself and then it starts coming about why I'm stressed. So it's just a vicious cycle, y'all. But definitely start taking those preventative measures. Start paying attention to your lifestyle, like how many things are taking up your time and energy and ultimately stressing you out.
Oh, that's big. And look, don't put me and Jen together when we both stressing. Woo, we be all
It is a quiet room though if we're both stressed.
we had those moments. Oh my goodness. So it is time for our life up. Sorry, I gotta laugh. Woo. It is time for our life up segment. So that's what we take the episode that we related to today's life. So best friend, what is our life up for tonight?
Short and simple. People not taking stress seriously.
That's real. And also too, stress is seen as a normal everyday thing. Sometimes you don't even realize you're stressed because you're like, well, this is a part of my life. This is it. You know what I mean? And I think too, when it's not taken seriously, it's dangerous because, at any moment I feel like it can hit a limit where you can't handle. And I think that's when like the negative effects of it comes out of what it could really do to you as a person.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is something I've been thinking about and even have talked about with my partner about, but like certain acts that are committed are because somebody has been stressed, right? In their world, in their mentality, whatever. So they act out on it in a very negative, very impactful way that doesn't help neither them nor society in general. But it's a way of realizing like who was paying attention to this person, right? Who wasn't taking them seriously when they were saying they were stressed out, or when they were trying to reach out for help, or who, like just different things like that. I know we're all in charge of our own bodies and our mind, and we should be the ones seeking help, but sometimes we don't know how much help we actually need. So if somebody is on the outside trying to help us out with that, then I think that's all the better. So we need to really start paying attention to people also, like when you notice somebody is stressed out, if you can help, then definitely try to help out. But if you can't, then just at least try not to stress yourself out. But I think that's just something that I wanted to say, because we just like to brush people off like, oh, they're over exaggerating, they're dramatic, whatever, which, obviously give or take with certain people. But there are some people that I know have cried for help and nobody listened until it was too late.
Especially when it's someone close to you and they're not acting like themselves. I think when someone close to you is like going through a rough patch, especially if it's being shown. So yeah, that was a good point to bring up. And you guys, we're going to emphasize this too. Practicing self-care is vital to our health. Like, it has to be done. It goes with the whole decompressing, that preventative care, including that in your routine. Like, don't even let it add up to where it's like, oh my goodness, you have to like constantly give yourself that thing. Just like you're filling up on water, you're gonna have to have that water throughout the day. But it's like if you go the whole day without water, it's gonna be bad results. So it's the same concept.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to acknowledge Dre Day in the comments. Hey, he's saying, I'm just learning to say no to. Yeah, definitely. I think this is one of the biggest things you can do, right? To either get rid of the stress or avoid the stress altogether. So definitely thank you for that. All the way from the East Coast, shout out. Midnight out there.
I know, he up though, leg. This love right here. The East Coast. It's funny, I had the wrong tab open. I guess I had the private chat tab. So I was like, I didn't see the comment when you said, where is it? But there it is. But hey, Dre Day. Thank you for tuning in. And also, too, here's another big one for the life of. Oh, go ahead. I'll let you go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, people not taking accountability for stressing others out. So how many of y'all have stressed the people out and not trying to own up to? We've all have done it probably in some way or another. And I think that's important too, to realize how much weight we put on to others. You know what I mean? And sometimes too, you don't know you're stressed on them. I'm talking about that, like when you purposely did, or you just didn't really care how a person felt. I think we have to take accountability for that too, because we don't know how much a person really could handle at the end of the day.
And then my thing is too, like, aren't you double stressed trying to stress somebody out? Also, like thinking of ways to stress them out. I'm sorry, just one particular person comes into mind for me that I'm like, that took too much energy and too much time out of your day for you to be able to treat me that way and talk to me. Like, I'm sure you're double stressed out than I am. Like, oh, what's next? What more can I add? So I'm just saying, I'll say it like this. It's pretty destructive. It's pretty pathetic as well to try and stress somebody out on purpose. Like, what progress is that going to do, for yourself and for that other person? Like, if it's somebody that you genuinely just don't want to see do well, or you just, are done with them, be done with them. Like, that's just what it is. That's the best way to just get rid of somebody. Obviously, take it to your personal life, depending on what your lifestyle is. But I think that's a really big way to just stop giving the time and energy to the wrong things, to the wrong people. Like, I think life is too short and it's too fragile and it's too beautiful to be wasting trying to make somebody else miserable, when in reality, I should just be working on my relationship with myself, trying to make myself happy, as well as the people who I actually care about and who actually matter to me be happy as well.
That was well said. How do we fix our life up segments? So number one is learning to revisit a situation. So give ourselves time to cool off. Sometimes you gotta take that pause. Like, okay, I ain't feeling too well. Let me go lay down for a second. Or you ever been got into a heated disagreement with somebody, and you guys just had to cool down, and then y'all were able to come up with a solution. Sometimes that's how it is with life, or with the stress in our life. Versus seeing everything so crazy while we're panicking.
Oof, y'all. This is a big one. Like, and even if you're in a small space or something, go to the bathroom or go take a step outside, something. Just
in the car.
Yes, don't be in that same physical space. I know me and my partner, we do this whenever we get on each other's nerves. One of us leaves, we have a different like storage room in the house. One of us goes to that storage room or goes out to the car, and we come back like 20, 30 minutes later. It's like, yeah, we just can't, like if you care enough about your relationships, right? It doesn't even have to be romantic only. But if you care enough about a relationship, obviously you're going to get into disagreements every now and then. So the best thing you can sometimes do is walk away and cool down. Let both parties cool down. Because when you're heated, yeah, you might say some things that you said out of anger, and you can never take those back once you've already said them, and this is coming from somebody who has a smart mouth, so I definitely have to watch my tongue sometimes. So I'm like, all right, I'm not the best at cooling myself off because I have a temper as well, but I do try my best to at least stay quiet and then at least get myself out of the physical space so that when I am back, I'm a little bit better. Still working on it.
That's true. I'm gonna say it on here because even me and my best friend, we in college. I don't know. I still to this day don't know what our disagreement was. I don't know, but we had to walk back together because we lived together in the same dorm. And the way we did it, Jim was in front of me walking. I was behind her. We were quiet for that whole walk back to our dorm, but she still kept the door open for me when I walked. And that was our cool off time. And then we were able to come back when nothing happened. What I'm trying to say is you have to revisit certain situations. The love is still there. It doesn't mean it's over, but sometimes you have to just do that. So don't stress yourself out.
That's the thing too, right? Like sometimes those arguments are so trivial, you won't remember them down the road. So it's like, was it worth us, yelling at each other and all that stuff if that were to have happened? When years down the line, that argument doesn't even matter anymore. I bet you we would have remembered what it was about if we had actually not taken the time to cool down and like got into it.
And yeah, see, so when two people care about a situation, they're gonna make it work. And also too, this is a big one. I was just thinking. I mean, it's actually one of my themes of the week. Actually, so the importance of maintaining your logic even during a stressful time. I really been focused on logic lately. That's what has been huge for me, and it's so true because we're sorry, when we are in an emotional state, we're freaking out or something like that. Our logic is out the window. In that moment, you end up doing things you might regret, or it's just all over, or doing something impulsive. I think those impulsive things, and something about that logic that helps you get through or maneuver through and makes it to where it's not so much of a crazy ride.
Oof. I'm gonna have to definitely second, piggyback, repeat, echo everything what you just said, because this is one of the things that really creates violence. It creates unnecessary arguments, unnecessary tension, and it just creates more hate, and then ultimately a bigger ball of stress because we're acting on those impulses, we're being negative, we're acting irrational. Like that's a dangerous place to be in, especially when you are stressed out or when you're heated in the moment, whichever. So when we're maintaining that logic, we're able to think even like, how is this going to affect me not only for the rest of my life, but even like 5 minutes down the road, 2 hours down the road, especially if it's with somebody and I acted impulsive, I look a certain way, or now they think of me a certain way, like it just adds more problems to the factor, when in reality, if you had just cooled down or thought back and really applied that logic, then you realize like, okay, it's not that big, or what, I don't want to seem a certain type of way, or in reality, yeah, I'm just being petty and maybe I shouldn't be. So let me just step back from the situation.
Yeah, we all be petty.
That logic. Yeah.
So yeah, get that logic in. But y'all know what time it is. It is time for our drink up water segment. Jen is going to have a water fact for tonight. Oh yeah, pour your water, drink some water, my bad.
That's right. I'll drink my water after the fact. But tonight's water fact is, when your muscles face external resistance, they contract. During this contraction, water is driven from the blood into muscle cells and surrounding areas that make those muscles swell. However, if your water intake is less than adequate, or you've sweat a lot while working out, your body shuttles water from muscles to the bloodstream to maintain blood pressure and preserve circulation, which makes adequate water intake mandatory between workouts for maintaining that muscle pump. This goes to any of y'all out there who work out in any type of sort, whether it's cardio, whether it's strength training, whatever it is that you do, you definitely need that water, because think about it. Your body's always going to be using the reserve of water that you have for whatever it needs it for, right? Your body is more for survival versus for what you're putting it through on purpose. So it's always going to take precedence to the bloodstream or to the circulatory systems, which pretty much the same thing. But like it's always going to prioritize that. So make sure that you're taking enough water so your body isn't also just always on survival mode trying to take care of itself. It can do both things pretty much.
Oh, that was well said. It's funny how we were coming up with this. We didn't know what to say for that, but you broke that down really good. So that was our drink up water pack with my bestie. Now back to our episode. So we're going to talk about now some of our favorite coping mechanisms for stress. We already mentioned a few in the episode, but I'm gonna elaborate a little more. So as I mentioned before, I like talking things out, running. Another one though is I think when I'm getting stressed, let's say it's with tasks, I like to write things out. So I'm really big on goal setting. Like I do a lot of monthly goals, weekly, daily goals. I have a prayer journal that I like to write into. So prayer is really big for me. Like I feel like sometimes if I'm just like overwhelmed with stress, like prayer is like actually I'm really big on faith. But also like just doing bubble baths. So that's another one for stress and taking a pause. Anything that's hard, taking a pause and doing something therapeutic like cleaning or cooking. Sometimes too when you're stressed, you have a lot of built up energy, right? Sometimes it's just all this energy. Sometimes it just has to be transmuted into something else. So I actually have to take that stress, use it as that fire to ask, and to motivate me to do other things that I need to do to get it done.
Oh yeah, big time. I think those are really good. Again, yeah, it's gonna depend on your lifestyle, your interests, your likes, whatever. Sometimes it can be very mindless. Sometimes it can be very what is it, structured. Like it just really depends on what you like. I like to have things that I can see, that I can touch, whichever. I'm big on arts and crafts, obviously. So uh me having like a to-do list or any type of visual that helps me map things out is key for me, especially if I'm trying to figure out what needs my attention now versus what can wait for a little bit later, right? Sometimes I get so excited about writing a to-do list that I'm like, oh shoot, yeah, I need to get this done. Or when I first wrote this down, I was supposed to do it like 3 weeks ago and now the deadline's here and stuff like that. So in having that to-do list, I get to again further break it down, and that's really been helping me. I get down to the nitty-gritty. But then even just drawing or making something, I really like to just be with my hands, right? So I'm always having to do something, whether it's drawing, whether it's playing with my hair, whether it's creating something physically. That really helps me because I realize too, like my hands need to be stimulated as much as my mind sometimes. So that's just a little tidbit about myself.
We gave y'all two different perspectives. So hopefully any of those work for you. Feel free to share any in the comments if you have any that you like to do. And also too, y'all normalize taking breaks throughout your day. I'm big on this. I'm taking my little break, whatever it is. Like even if you walk outside for 1 minute and just breathe. Like sometimes I realize I don't breathe. Like I'm not like taking like those deep breaths that I should be taking. Sometimes like when it comes to mind, I'm like, okay, now pause and I take those deep breaths and I automatically feel better right there.
Oh yeah, big time, y'all. Get that oxygen properly flowing into the head, right? So practice that mindful, that intentional breathing. We both are big on this, but I think more people should be normalizing naps. Like I love naps now. Obviously I don't get to take them all the time. I don't even get to take them on a weekly basis, but whenever I do have that chance, my schedule is a little more open, I normalize taking naps, and it's like the best thing in the world for me. Now I've heard different things of like, oh, I can't take a nap, or might as well just go to sleep, or that's just breaking my day, or whatever, which is fine. Sure, you don't have to, but for me personally, I love to take a nap because not only does it help my body physically, but it helps me emotionally and mentally. Like I'm gonna take it like this, right? Have y'all ever had a really good cry that you get sleepy afterwards and you take a nap? Yeah, exactly. Your brain was telling you that you needed that. So
like a baby.
Exactly. Paying attention. I feel like that instinct never goes away, right? In that aspect, we're always going to be children. But I love that, because even if that nap doesn't fix everything, at least I feel a little bit more ready to take on whatever's coming afterwards, right? Whatever caused that cry or whatever I have to handle for the rest of the day. I feel a little bit more recharged, but then I also took that break. It's like essentially cooling down for a certain amount of time before I have to revisit that situation. So normalizing naps, y'all.
That's a big one. So it is time for our quote up segments. Y'all know my bestie is a quotey, so she has a quote for tonight.
Tonight's quote is, "If you feel like you're losing everything, remember that trees lose their leaves every year, yet they still stand tall and wait for better days to come." I love this quote. Absolutely. Like, I love the comparison to the trees, because, yeah, let's be real, right? It's speaking of spring. We saw the leaves fall during winter, and then now that it's spring, everything is green. Especially it's rained a little bit more in California, so things have produced a lot better this season. But I absolutely love it because, yeah, they just keep coming back, right? So in a way, it's talking about even the resilience of trees. So be like that tree as well, right? Have that resilience. Right now it may feel like everything is going wrong, or like everything is so chaotic in your life. Maybe it's just your time of winter and your spring is going to come a little bit later, but it's just a matter of being a little bit more patient. But if you're not showing up, how are you ever going to know that you're getting
Oh, how are you ever nurtured again? I love that. And also too, hoping, the more you hope for those better days, I feel like it keeps you optimistic and keeps you wanting, like it's that good positive self-talk that I'm gonna get through the stress that's happening. Remember y'all, stress will break you down if you let it, and that's why I feel like it's important to do this episode is because bringing the awareness to the stress and then thinking of what can I do to alleviate it so you don't get to a spot where it does break you down or the negative effects really do take over. I feel like we're all battling some type of stress every day, something, you know what I mean? But it's like I feel like some types of stress we know how to combat more than others. So I think it's like those bigger ones that we really don't know what to do when we get in that defense survival mode is where like needing that help is going to come in or being
there?
more open and vulnerable about it.
Oof. Yeah, I love that big time. And maybe not everybody's going to agree or be able to or whatever, but I'm going to say it anyway with this next point. Learning to practice mental toughness. It is what it is, right? We are adults living in this society, most of us. Um, so there's certain things that we're going to have to do, that we're going to have to put up with, certain people we're going to have to talk to, interact with, whatever, that we don't like or that genuinely stress us out, right? Sometimes we do have to put up with things that are not going to be happy or even necessarily healthy. I think that's a part of learning from life, learning from people as well. But then too, learning to get stronger. Again, it builds those boundaries, it builds those values. You learning what you can put up with, what is important to you. Like, these are so many different things that they don't get handed to us. And if we're being real, you only find out when you're uncomfortable or when things don't go your way. So I'm just saying this to say this, that there's a lot of us, and even myself too, that we need to practice more of being tough mentally, that we need to understand that we're not always going to get our way, that things are not always going to be easy, and that sometimes things are going to really suck. But if we pay attention to ourselves enough and we realize that we are all we've got, individually, then maybe things can get a little bit easier. Of course, if you need that professional help, feel free to seek that. I'm not ever going to say don't do that. But what I am trying to say is just that sometimes things suck, especially the older we get, the adults that we are, but we have to suck it up and then realize what we can and cannot put up with.
Yes, we have to continue fighting for ourselves. And honestly, how does this relate to self love? Self love is bringing awareness to the stress in your life, bringing awareness to what's causing it, and also acknowledging what can you do to alleviate that. I think in the day that's a big thing that we need to pay attention to, and that's what the goal of tonight's episode was.
Yeah, definitely. Stress is inevitable, right? It is going to happen in our lives. Like I was saying, learning to cope, learning to conquer. And then using that stress to your advantage. Like, why does stress have to mean that we're weak? Why does it have to mean that we failed at something? On the contrary, it can help you with productivity, it can help you reevaluate the goals. Again, you'll learn your morals, your values right there. You'll find out what habits actually are good for you and work for your lifestyle. Like, if you decide to give up every time something gets hard, then you're never going to learn about yourself. So if you're actually starting to use that stress to your advantage, then you're going to see that, oh, okay, maybe I wouldn't even call it stress. It's just something that maybe put that fire under me that I needed to push me to the next level of myself.
Mm. Yes, and what is our wrap up for tonight? We also have some resources for you as well.
Yeah, so, even though that was a little bit of tough love at the end, this is just a reminder to always pay attention to your health and your stress levels, right? Because obviously stress is very real. It is going to show in different ways of our lives if we don't take care of ourselves. So just not only in awareness of stress awareness month, but just every single day, make sure that you're paying attention to yourself. If you do need help, please reach out, whether it's professionally or to a loved one. There are certain resources that I've personally really liked. I know, like Therapist Aid, they have certain worksheets or even articles or even just activities to explore yourself a little bit more and find out what does stress you out, what to alleviate with that stress. So that's definitely something I would recommend. I know the ASSP, they're big also on having free resources to help you better manage stress. They have really good points in their articles. I love that they take different approaches to, like, they have different types of meditations, even different features on your phones that you can have to help reduce the noise. And also the ISMA USA, they're also big. They stand for the International Stress Management Association, by the way, but they're the ones to continue the study and the remediation of stress. So they're definitely someone that I would recommend checking out as well. But obviously, feel free to share more resources or more things with people, especially during this month, so that we can all stay aware of stress levels and pay attention to ourselves.
I love that. Yeah, it's all about finding out what works for you and what works for others. So thank you, Bestie, for sharing that. So we appreciate y'all tapping into our 11th episode of Speak Up JV Now. Y'all come in, but make sure y'all check us out. We just dropped a new episode, a new pre-recorded episode. It's up on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Please subscribe, please tap it, please tell your friends to tune in. You can follow us on Instagram at SpeakUpJV and on Twitter at SpeakUpJV. But before we go, quick shout out to our amazing sponsors. Shout out to My Bar, located at 720 East Manchester in Inglewood, California. Get your nails, your lashes, your hair done. Extra mind. Tell them that SpeakUpJV sent you. The Instagram is at myy.bar.
And shout out to Be Actual Natural. Why settle for less? All their products are created with you in mind for a goal to let your self-love show through your self-care. Their chemical-free hair and skincare products are handmade, plant-based, and free of fillers or preservatives. Treat yourself while you're taking care of yourself. Start your journey at www.beactualnatural.com or check them out on Instagram at beactualnatural.
Yes, most definitely. And also check out Lakita's book as well. But we love y'all. We'll be back. Thank y'all for tuning in.
Thank you.
Bye.